Welcome to episode 349 of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I'm your host, Rob Irving, joined by my co-host, Jason Turner. Jason, how you doing today?
I'm all right, Rob. How are you doing?
I am doing okay. Don't think I have any news to share, or we'll have a lot of news to share in a minute, I guess, but we'll get there. How about you?
No, nothing particular. I don't think I've mentioned that I did actually have a talk accepted for C++ North.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I
That'll
got the
be...
acceptance like a month ago, but it leads to a complicated trip for me because I have to fly back from England to Canada on my way home to
Yeah.
do this.
Well, it'll be wonderful time to be in Canada, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get accepted like right after we had uh Stephanie and Diana on?
Yeah, I think it was like the next week or something they sent out the initial acceptance emails.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, at the top of every episode, I like to sort of piece of feedback. We got this tweet after last week's episode with Joel de Guzman. And this is another recent guest, Renee Fernand Rivera Morel, saying, "Hey, Joel, nice episode. This rounds out CppCast interviewing everyone who once upon a time worked for Boost Pro." And Eric Niebler commented, "Was I on and don't remember?"
Eric
And we did, in
definitely
fact,
was
have
on, yes.
Eric on. Yes, I think it was within our first year of doing CppCast, and we
I
talked about
actually went
ranges with
back and
him.
looked. I looked
Okay.
back. I looked up the episode, but I can't recall what it was now. Sorry.
It was
But
definitely
it
in the
was,
first year or two.
yeah, I think it was in the first below 150, definitely. It was in the first couple of years.
Yeah.
Then it had to be below 100 if it was in the first 2 years.
Did we? I think we may have mentioned Boost Pro, the consulting company. I mean, I guess we have had all the former engineers from there on. Did we
I
mention that
have
with Joel? I don't know.
I don't recall actually mentioning the company. Are they still
Okay.
around? Like still doing work?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It's an interesting era. Well, for someone who's old like me, when everyone, well, and this came up in our last interview, right?
Hmm.
Where the discussion of like, well, can you make money as an open source company? And
Right.
there was a time frame in the like late 90s that you had like Red Hat and stuff going public, and their stocks, I mean, were it was perfect timing for the .com era. They got swept up in the .com era. Their stocks skyrocketed. My understanding is that actually Linus made a fair bit of money because all those Linux companies, as they went public, they gave him a few shares just like as a goodwill token,
Oh,
like
wow.
thanks for creating Linux.
Yeah.
And if he managed that wisely, then it would have been a lot of money. Today, it'd probably be worth almost nothing. But because I don't know how many of those companies even still exist. But
Yeah.
yeah, interesting.
All right. Well, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the show. You can always reach out to us on Facebook, Twitter, or email us at feedback@cppcast.com. And don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes or subscribe on YouTube. And it's just us today.
Just us.
And I guess we'll do some news first and then talk about our own news. Does that make sense to you, Jason?
I think we may as well. We've always had
Okay.
news.
Always had news. Okay.
It's part of
So
the
what do we
format.
have? We have first up from Jonathan Mueller, an update to Lexi, a C++
Yeah.
parsing DSL library, and this is the first beta release. I know we've talked about Lexi before, probably
Mhm.
over a year ago, but I guess it's had plenty of new features, and I guess I'm not sure if he's calling this a 1.0 or if it's just maybe more stable going from alpha to beta.
Yeah, I think it's um I got the impression from Twitter, I guess. Maybe I'm missing something here, that this was it's the first official release. Everything else
Okay.
has just been, go and check out the GitHub repository. This is the first like tagged release of Lexi, if I got that right.
Gotcha. Have
And
you
it's
had a
a
chance
parser
to...
generator, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
parser generator for DSLs. I have not really looked too deep into it. Have you?
When it was first announced, I looked a little bit closer. I haven't looked recently in depth into it.
I did see one thing he highlighted in the Reddit post is parse tree generation, and there's this playground website with a compiler explorer like interface where you can have some code using Lexi and see the output of it, which seems pretty nice.
Well, that is fancy.
Very fancy.
And this is perfect. I said a few weeks ago that I put out a challenge to anyone who wanted to start a YouTube channel that they could do a response channel. And I don't know if you saw this, but someone
Uh,
did do a response video to one of ours. Like they covered some of the news items,
oh,
and they released. And it's actually, I believe, people who go to my meetup, people who are local to Colorado. Um, so this is definitely something like if you're out there thinking, I want to really get into YouTube, this is definitely something that you could cover in your YouTube videos.
yeah, definitely. All right. Next thing, speaking of that, compiler explorer like feature that Lexi has, this is another post on Reddit with someone making their own online C++ compiler. And yeah, link is here in the show notes. This one also, kind of looks similar to Compiler Explorer. And I think people were asking in the comments, what, differentiates this between, your site and Compiler Explorer. And I think this is more mobile optimized.
Yeah, a little bit more what's the word? Responsive layout.
Yeah.
Now,
So,
when I
go ahead.
first clicked on this, it was broken, but just now
Oh,
I checked and it did work. It did run the program. It doesn't give you the disassembly. It's not
right.
that kind of focus. It's more like what's the other online compiler?
Is it the
Kiru
wand
Kirulu? Oh,
from their
or
wand box or
Wandbox.
something? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, more like that.
Right. So if you want to test out some C++ code and you only have your phone or tablet available, this is a good option for you.
I
Got
mean,
a good
everyone can
URL
get it from
too.
the phone.
Goonlinetools.com.
Oh, I didn't notice that. That's pretty
Yeah,
good. Wait, are there other Go online tools?
that's a great question.
I didn't go up to the top domain.
So
There
they have
is.
a C++
Random number generators,
compiler, random string generators.
random emoji generator.
Interesting.
What?
Instagram caption generator. They have a lot of tools here. Okay. CSS formatter. Interesting. Okay. And they have other
That is so
compilers too. They
weird.
have Python, they have Java, PHP. Okay.
Online photo editors? What in the world?
Well, I'll have to keep this site in mind. Looks like they have a bunch of interesting tools. Yeah.
Lua Beautifier.
XML
Minified.
to JSON and CSV to
Uh,
XML. Interesting.
that's what then you could do CSV to JSON. Wait, how would that work? Wait, how would CSV to XML work? Because you would need object.
Yeah, that's a good
No,
question. I don't
once
know
you get to
about
the JSON.
JSON to XML makes sense to me. I don't know about the CSV to XML. What does
Yes,
that?
JSON to XML. XML to JSON sounds harder to get right. Like you would need a set of
Yeah.
heuristics to guess what object names should be and stuff, or make
Right.
it overly generic in a way that would be difficult to work with.
Yeah. Interesting.
Markdown editor? What in the world? Okay.
Just spend the whole show walking through all these tools.
Well, you really could.
Good stuff. Oh, you've even got an online screen recorder in here.
What? I
Yeah.
missed that. Color
Anyway.
generators. QR code generator. Everyone needs a QR code generator.
That's pretty cool.
I have to see this. It
Yeah.
works. Oh, where's my cell phone? I take a picture real quick.
All right. And then the next thing we have is GCC 12.1 is being released. This is a major release, 35th anniversary. I think we talked about some of the features that were being put out in this release
Yeah.
last week, right?
Yeah, we did cover, but it's now official as of May 6th, I guess.
Yes.
So 3 days ago from the time of recording this episode.
Yeah. So definitely a good time to go update your compilers, get the latest goodness.
Yeah, there's one random thing in here that On the security side, GCC can now initialize stack variables implicitly using the ftrivial auto var init to help tracking down and mitigating uninitialized stack variable flaws. I'm just concerned that it would just makes cross-platform code more difficult in a way, because I prefer the idea of what Visual Studio does, where in a debug build, all memory is default initialized with a recognizable pattern, CD, CD, CD by default, right?
Right.
And then if you have uninitialized value and you bump into the debugger and you see that CD, CD, you know
what's going
why.
on. Yeah.
In this case, you might just end up relying on default initialization to 0 and not know what happened. I mean, you could argue it's a flaw in the language, but we can't fix that because that would break all kinds of backward compatible. Well, would it break? If we now specified in the language that stack variables were default initialized, would that break existing code? It would only break existing code that relied on undefined behavior. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But you would definitely get people crying that it just pessimized their code because now there's a 0 right in there that they didn't want there to be before, and there's an extra 3 bytes in the binary and an extra instruction added, and
right.
Interesting.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing we have here isn't necessarily new news, but I think this is a post that Jens Veller on Meeting C++ makes every month with upcoming C++ meetups. So, any meetup that Meeting C++ is aware of, all the meetups for that month will be posted here. So you can see there's Denver, your monthly meetup, Jason.
We're actually meeting back in person for the first time in just over 2 years.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, if you want to find out if there is a C++ meetup in your area, definitely go check this site. It's probably the best way to go find one.
And if you run a meetup and it's not currently on the Meeting C++ website, there's a link somewhere on here to submit
get yourself listed.
Yeah, get yourself listed, and Jens does a good job of getting these all updated. There's a lot in Germany, I will say that, and a couple in Poland.
Yeah, a lot of European ones.
Yep. Vienna. Maybe I should go to the Vienna meetup on the 19th. No, that's not going to happen. Actually, I don't even know if that's in person. Most of them are still online, just for the record, but things are slowly changing. That one is in person. The Vienna one at the end of the month is in person.
Okay. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I guess there's no other time but now to talk about our news for this episode.
And if you saw the episode title, it'll probably have given away.
We're gonna have to figure out what the episode title is gonna be. I mean, maybe we want to trick people. Maybe we want them to think it's a normal episode right up until now.
Maybe, or yeah. I don't know.
Well,
several of my favorite YouTube channels have had big news episodes, and they come down to like, oh yeah, I'm currently moving, and so I won't have any episodes for the next week.
Okay.
And then you're like, wait, that's kind of clickbait.
I'm not opposed to doing a clickbait title.
We could give it a shot. We could just say big channel news. I don't know.
We could. Well, so people aren't hanging on for any longer, wondering what we're talking about. We are going to be, I guess, going on an indefinite hiatus is what we're calling it.
Yeah, indefinite hiatus. I think that's what we settled on. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess I'll start because, it was me who really initiated this plan to go on an indefinite hiatus. But yeah, like a few weeks ago, I kind of was just publishing an episode and was wondering to myself, why still put this much effort into the podcast each week? And that sounds really mean in a way and very selfish maybe, but
not at all.
We've been doing it for 7 years, and I kind of got a lot out of it, obviously. I think we both have.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if it makes sense to be doing for me anymore. I recently changed jobs, and I think I mentioned this like 2 months ago. And I have in the past thought about looking for a job in like developer evangelism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after this recent job change, which is not evangelism at all, I kind of realized that that's probably not going to happen. I'm very very happy with my new job, but because I doubt I'm going to be going into developer evangelism, I kind of just thought, you know, maybe it doesn't make sense to be doing the podcast anymore because it doesn't, you know, directly impact my career in any way. I should say the new job is has been mostly .NET.
Yeah, I was gonna say you should
Um,
point out that you're not
yeah,
actually doing C++ work
I
anymore.
am not doing C++. Although, when we talked about this, and we've been talking about it a lot over the past few weeks, but I told you how within the first month and a half, I've only been doing .NET. I actually touched C++ at my day job yesterday or
Oh,
Friday and
perfect
today.
timing.
Perfect timing. Just a little bit. Um, I'm doing a lot of web development in .NET with Blazor WebAssembly. If listeners have heard of that, it's .NET's version of doing WebAssembly website development, and I needed to get a native library into my Blazor project. So I spent some time with Inscripton.
Hmm,
Nothing too complex, but did get a little bit of C++ in the last few days.
that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah. Anyway, kind of just to go back to what I was saying, I just kind of felt that I have been mostly doing the podcast recently, like for the community and not as much for myself. And that kind of made me think maybe it is a good time to step down and move on. Yeah. How about you? Do you want to talk about why you decided to follow me with
Follow along, yeah.
ending the podcast? Yeah, or
What was it?
indefinite. Yeah,
Indefinite hiatus.
yeah,
It's possible that we or someone else perhaps might pick up this mantle
right.
at some point. We don't know. Um, it was nearly about 3 years ago that I tried to abdicate some of my responsibilities when I was traveling all of the time, and I suggested that we find like an ad hoc, someone to come in and be an occasional co-host because I was
Hmm.
traveling a lot, and I have gotten so much out of the podcast from things that I learn, meeting people, exposure for my training business, and all that stuff. Um, but that didn't really pan out. Turned out that it was hard to find
Yeah,
people
and
who wanted to
obviously
co-host.
we've had a few episodes where you were away doing training or a conference, and we needed to have a co-host, and I found a few for that purpose. But yeah, it was kind of always a little difficult to find someone who was up for kind of doing an episode. Yeah,
Yeah, and well, I mean, we like you said, we've been doing this for 7 years.
yeah,
How many? Oh yeah, right. Uh, I was thinking how many episodes and whatever, but or guess, but we'll talk about that later, right?
yeah.
7 years is a long time,
It is.
and I've never kept a job for more than 4 years.
Yeah.
Arguably, this is the longest job I've ever had. Although
Mhm.
it's also the worst paying job I've ever had.
That's very true. Yeah.
From
Yeah, and
looking at
it's almost longest job for me too, because my first job out of college, I stayed there like for like 8 years. I started the podcast just a few months before leaving that job, and
Mhm.
then I did my previous job for like 6.5, almost 7 years, and now just started this new one. And so yeah, it, the podcast has been my second longest job. Yeah,
And with an hourly rate comparable to your first job.
yeah, yeah, probably.
I mean, we weren't doing it for the money, obviously, but
No,
it's been a lot of effort and a long time, and it's just feels like it's time to move on to something else.
yeah, it has been. I should say, just kind of going back to my reasons. Obviously, I've always enjoyed doing every single interview, talking with you each week, talking to the guest. But there is, a fair amount of work that goes in besides that 1 hour interview. We prepare show notes, we have to go find new guests, we do editing, I do publishing. So that time does take away from free time that I would be spending with my family. I have to put in a little extra work if I'm recording an interview during my normal work hours. So
Right. Yeah, and that takes an hour and a half out of your work day an hour
exactly.
and a half out
And
of your work week every week, basically, at least. And then
yeah.
I don't know how long you spend like preparing the stuff. Just for the record, everyone, Rob has always been the one who did all of the hard work here. Uh, I would help with show notes in the interview and everything, but I still estimate it probably took about 3 hours a week for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So I have to assume it was at least 5, 6, 7 hours a week for you, which is notable.
Yeah. Maybe 4 or 5, it would be my guess, but I'm not,
Okay.
keeping a running tally. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, I mean, and like I was saying, I've been really thankful that current job and previous job are very flexible with having no problem with me doing a podcast interview in the middle of my 9 to 5 work day, but it does take away, and I have to make up that time later because the podcast is not my full-time job. Maybe if it was, keep it going forever, but it's not. Yeah. um yeah, so
I
that's
think
where
on
we are. Yeah, go ahead.
that note of keeping it going forever, I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit from our plan here because you
Mhm.
saw this tweet recently from
Yeah.
Angie McCowan.
Yeah, I think this tweet just kinda was going a little viral one day a few weeks ago, and it was, pretty much right after I started, thinking and talking to you about going on this indefinite hiatus, and,
Mhm.
I'm just gonna go ahead and read it because it definitely spoke a lot to me. So here's the tweet. I think this was, like, copy pasted from Reddit or something else, or Tumblr maybe? I think a lot
Tumblr.
about how
Okay.
we as a culture have turned forever into the only acceptable definition of success. Like if you open a coffee shop and run it for a while and it makes you happy, but then stuff gets too expensive and stressful, and you want to do something else, so you close it. It's a failed business. If you write a book or two, then decide that you don't actually want to keep doing that, you're a failed writer. If you marry someone and that marriage is good for a while and then stops working and you get divorced, it's a failed marriage. The only acceptable win condition is you keep doing that thing forever. A friendship that lasts for a few years, but then its time is done and you move on is considered less valuable or not a real friendship. A hobby that you do for a while and then are done with is a phase, or alternatively, a pity that you don't do that thing anymore. A fandom is dying because people have had a lot of fun with it, but are now moving on to other things. I just think that something can be good and also end, and that thing was still good. And it's okay to be sad that it ended too, but the idea that anything that ends is automatically less than this hypothetical eternal state of success, I don't think that's doing us any good at all. And yeah, I read that and it definitely spoke to me. And I don't think CppCast is a failed podcast, even if
Not at
we
all.
never do another episode. We had over 300 successful episodes. But
We're like Seinfeld, right? So Seinfeld said, we don't want to fade out and die slowly as a TV show. They
yeah,
said they intentionally ended while they were still at the top of the ratings.
right.
Now they ended with like one of the worst series finales that's
I
ever
remember
been
that.
put on
It was not
TV.
a good episode. Yeah.
No, but that's not the point. The point is they still went out while they were on top. We're still the most listened to C++ podcast. So we're going out while we're still number one.
As far as we know, I mean, we don't see anyone else's numbers, but maybe ADSP is doing real good. I mean, I shouldn't, hopefully they are.
Yeah, hopefully they are, yes.
Yeah.
We should have had a list of other podcasts in here, but we didn't put that together.
I mean, we can put that in. I mean, ADSP is great. I've listened to a bunch of their episodes recently. What does that the acronym actually stand for? Algorithms plus
Plus,
data structures equals programming.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Um,
And then two's complement.
Two's complement. And what is the other one? TB hit is one.
Yes.
but
Yeah. That's
that's
JF's,
that's
right?
JF Bastion. That one is not very regular.
They
I
just
saw
released an
someone
episode. Yeah.
commenting that they just released a new episode, and it was like exactly a year since the previous one. But I'm sure it's good content. Yeah.
Yeah, no, an ADSP is quite regular.
Yeah.
None of the ones that we just mentioned are C++ specific.
Sure.
Uh,
There's also CPP chat, but I think they've taken a little bit of a break as well. I don't think they put out
yeah,
an episode recently,
it's been a
but they
while.
were always a little bit more irregular. Yeah. Um, yeah. So I guess the next thing we should say is that we want to thank and say how much we appreciate everyone who's supported and listened to the show over the past 7 years. So thank you to all of our listeners. Thank you to all of the patrons on Patreon who've been supporting the show. And did want to mention that although we'll be shutting down the CppCast Patreon, Jason, you still have your own Patreon for C++ Weekly, right?
I do, yeah. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but yeah. So if anyone is interested, because I know a couple of people told me that they stopped supporting C++ Weekly's Patreon and moved to CppCast to like spread the love around. Well, C++, the CppCast Patreon is shutting down. You're welcome to move back. That's all. That's all I'll say.
Okay. And then also want to definitely thank all of our sponsors who've supported the show over the years.
We've pretty consistently had sponsors almost forever at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, we very early on got sponsorship with, I think JetBrains was the first one.
That sounds, yes, right, because because I recorded we both recorded ad spots for that. I
Hmm.
remember doing that,
Yeah.
and it was a little awkward for me because at the time I didn't use IDs at all, and I'm trying to record an ad spot for Sea Lion. Now
You
I
later
use
on
Sea
did
Lion
start
all the
using
time.
C-Line. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Um, yeah, and then obviously the other people we really want to thank are all of the guests we've had on the show. Although we've done a handful of episodes that were just the two of us talking about news and such.
What, like 10 or something maybe
About
total?
that probably. So yeah, CppCast would not have been successful if we weren't an interview show.
No.
So
It
thank you to all of the guests who came on to talk about your books, your libraries, your conference talks, everything. Really
and you
appreciate
added
it.
this up, 294 unique guests.
Yes, 294 guests we've had on the show. Obviously, we've had several guests on, sometimes twice, sometimes, 4 or 5 times. But yeah, 294 unique guests have been on CppCast. That does include you.
It does me.
Yeah.
I was episode number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I
That's quite
feel
right.
like I should take this opportunity to apologize too, because I mean, 294 guests, right? So, like at CppCon last year, well, maybe not last year, but at CppCon, I've definitely had people come up to me and say, like, oh, hi, like, and I'm like, and I look at them and I'm like, I should know who you are. And then I pull out my phone real quick and I'm like, oh, shoot, they were a guest on CppCast. I've interviewed this person, but that's a lot of people.
It is.
it's, it's really hard to keep all that straight.
Yeah, I have not had that problem. I guess I also don't go to as many conferences as you, but I typically am really good at remembering faces, but just not remembering someone's name. So I'll see the person and know that we talked to them, but it takes me a moment to realize who they are and what we talked about.
Oh, well, shoot. Yeah. And even if I immediately remember, oh, yeah, I've had you on the podcast, remembering what we talked about, I need like the 10-second memory jog to, reshuffle the LRU cache up to the top here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What else do we want to talk about, Jason? We did want to put in these plugs for all the upcoming conferences.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I'll be making it to many of these in the near future because, like I said, I'm not doing much C++ development right now. But I think you'll probably be a lot of these, right?
I don't know actually, because I just well, it's interesting. Okay, so I'm keynoting at C++ on C. That's the
Okay.
next C++ conference coming up that I know about. That's July 5th through the 7th. Workshops are on July 4th. I am offering a workshop on doing code reviews. So that's in Folkestone. You still have time to buy a ticket and buy airplane tickets to England. Travel is really surprisingly easy at the moment. The next conference coming up, NDC Tech Town. That's the one that's in.
Is it Oslo?
No,
No.
it's not in Oslo. It's in the town that's. I can't remember what town it's in. Shoot, I've been there. One of us see who gets to it faster. It's west of.
Kongsberg? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Kongsberg. Okay. So that one is August 28th to the 31st. I'm not currently planning to do that one, but I just want to make sure we mention all of the, because we like to talk about conference news, right?
Yeah.
If this is going to be our last episode, let's make sure that at least everyone knows about all the conferences that have been announced right now.
Yeah.
I'm guessing C++ Now probably just announced their dates for 2023, but I did not think to grab that. That'd be in May.
Let's see if I can check right now.
So Core C++, that's the one that's in Tel Aviv. September 5th through the 7th is coming up. CppCon, September 11th through the 16th is coming up back here in Aurora, Colorado. And Meeting C++ has officially announced that they are a hybrid conference, November 17th through the 19th.
I'm not seeing any dates for C++ Now next year.
Okay, they usually announce the future dates on the last day of the conference. So if you're feeling particularly ambitious, you could be in Folkestone August 28th through the 31st, then fly to Israel. Not Folkestone, excuse me. You could be in Kongsberg and you could be in Norway, the 28th through the 31st. Then fly to Israel for the 5th through the 7th, and then fly back to Aurora for the 11th through the 16th for CppCon.
Yeah.
Now, I just actually noticed, like yesterday, I was looking at my calendar and realized I actually have a very important family obligation that partially overlaps with CppCon. So even though it's in my backyard, I don't even actually know if I'm going to make it to CppCon, interestingly.
Okay.
That was a little bit of a surprise when I realized that.
Yeah.
But it's my grandma's 90th birthday, so kind of have to go to that.
Yeah,
that's very important.
Is that
miss that?
Where's your grandma? Is that in Denver or?
It's going to be in
cross
Florida.
country somewhere. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So no. Yeah, it's not like I can drive to the conference and then drive to the party or anything like that.
No, that would not work out.
No. So that was kind of a little surprising, kind of funny in a way when I noticed that.
Yeah.
So the only one that I know for sure I'm going to is C++ on C, but we'll see about the others that I don't have other obligation overlaps with.
I guess we didn't have CPP North on this one, but we just had them on, and that one is in July, right?
Oh goodness, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Let's
make sure we add it to the notes.
CPP North.
July 18th to 20th.
Right, and that one I am planning to speak at right now. I was accepted, and I just have to figure out this relatively complicated trip of getting back from Europe to Canada to make it home.
Okay, and then you want to talk about some other stuff that you're going to be up to, because although I might not be as active in the C++ community, you still will be, even without.
I am not dropping out of the C++ community. Let's make that perfect.
Not saying I'm dropping out. I'm just not going to be as active.
Right. Yeah, but so let's see. We've got. I want to say, like, if you want to book training, this is my last chance to advertise the fact that I do training on CppCast. I am still doing training. A lot of companies are returning to the office. You should hire me to come to your office to do training. I just updated my website. We'll have a link to it because I wanted to be more explicit about my style, and I'll take just like the 2-minute elevator pitch here. If you want it, well, first of all, every company needs C++ best practices training. It is not the only thing that I do, but you all need best practices training. Trust me, because I've seen enough to know that you all need it. But and just in general, the way my training works is I've got a bunch of curriculae up on my website, suggested possibilities for classes. You contact me and you say, we want this curriculum. And I say, that sounds great. We settle on a date and a length of class that you want. And then shortly before the actual class, like say 1 to 2 weeks before the class, I will send the students a pre-class survey. I use that survey and the information that I glean from that to customize the class specifically to those students. As far as I know, I'm the only one that is that customizes my classes this much to the students. And then I further customize the class throughout the length of the, I recommend 2 to 3 days, but anything from 1 to 5 is possible depending on where you are and whatever. But I even throughout the class, each evening, go back to the hotel. I'll customize what we're going to talk about the next day based on the kinds of questions that the students asked, whatever. And I'm continuing to do code reviews. I've gotten a surprising number of people asking for code reviews lately. So I also put some information up on that link that we'll be listing. And that can be, again, fully customized. Do you want me to give you a formal report back, or do you want like an ad hoc YouTube stream kind of code review? I've had thousands of people watch those code reviews. So far, I've published 3 puzzle books. I think we've only mentioned...
I don't think I knew about the third one. Yeah, we talked about 2 of them, I think, right?
Yeah, the third one I didn't do a good job of advertising. It's Opcode Puzzlers, and it's basically like a limited instruction set machine and only 8-bit operations. And you have to actually execute all the operations and decode what the message was that was created in memory.
Cute.
I have 4 more in the works, so I know I'm going to publish at least a total of 7. My goal, which I never told anyone publicly, but now I'll go ahead and spill the beans, was to do 10 puzzle books in the course of 2022. So I know I'll get 7 out the door.
Nice.
C++ Weekly does not plan to stop anytime soon. I think my last plan was to cover the release of C++ 32, and then I'll retire.
Really plan that far ahead?
Well, I mean, if you just look at it like that'll be like 9 more years of, or whatever, 10 more years of doing C++ Weekly. I'll be in my 50s. I'll probably be tired of releasing an episode,
a weekly episode of YouTube,
every single week. But no telling.
And you're also planning on bringing your other YouTube channel back up to speed, right?
Yeah, so my other YouTube channel, The Retro Programmer, which kind of has an interesting history in my head that I don't give it enough credit for. You mentioned it when you introduced me at CppCon when I gave the Rich Code for Tiny Computers, the Commodore 64 talk that everyone liked. Because it was on that channel that I first demonstrated that it would be possible to run modern C++ code on a Commodore 64. And then that was actually seen by Herb Sutter, who then invited me to give the talk at CppCon. And it's on my to-do list to thank Herb still for that opportunity again. Thank him again for that opportunity, because that had a significant impact in the rest of the things that happened over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
That was a lot of visibility in that talk.
Yeah. So do you have videos planned that you're going to be doing on that channel?
Yeah, so I'm going to toss it up a little bit. Right now it's called The Retro Programmer, and I'm C++ Weekly. I mean, I kind of have to release an episode about C++ every week with that channel in case it wasn't obvious. And my viewers punish me if I do something that's not like a new C++ feature or some sort of gotcha. I get like a half to a third as many views.
So you can't do a Rust episode there. They'll
I
burn you alive.
could, a Rust episode, that's cheating because that would be
Okay.
clickbait at that point.
Yeah.
But I can't do any other random topic that interests me, basically.
Right.
So I'm gonna rebrand the Retro Programmer. I'm currently planning to call it literally the fill in the blank programmer. So
Okay.
then each episode I could be like the object-oriented programmer and cover some design patterns.
Okay.
Or I could be I have a bunch of ideas. The SQL programmer, and just like have an episode on like what is a relational database, things that I've worked with in my career. My career's been a lot longer than just C++ focused, but I never talk about any of the other things that I have experience with, and I just feel like it'd be another creative outlet, I guess.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
And with I'll have a few extra hours a week to put together those episodes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I should also say, Jason, if I haven't said it already, that one of the things I am going to miss the most is just having a chance to catch up with you and talk about stuff every week. We'll definitely still keep in touch, but we'll be missing that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Rob. And it's been like I said at the start of this, the opportunities that were opened up here and the opportunities that you gave 294 people by creating CppCast, honestly, because we don't talk about this so much publicly, right? But we might have like a book author come on and they'll talk about their book, and then they'll tell us like 3 months later that they're still seeing a tail in increased book sales from being on the podcast.
Yeah.
There's been lots of people who were just starting out in the community, and you found them somehow, and they've gone on to do very significant things and lots of conference talks and important open source libraries and whatever. So I think it's been significant experience for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely, like I said before, I've enjoyed every single episode that we've made. I'm really proud of what we've done with CppCast. And it's definitely, having a lot of bittersweet feelings, like, are we actually letting this go right now? But like we said, we kind of both feel like it's a good time to step down.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe a month from now, we'll find ourselves really missing this and change our minds.
That's possible.
Maybe a year from now, who knows? We'll see. But we're ready to take a break for now.
Yeah, ready to take a break for now. And I also want to say that I'm proud of us, I guess, for consistent. We didn't miss a single episode for the 2 years that a lot of people like pretty much weren't leaving their houses because of COVID. And we got feedback from a bunch of people about having that consistency, specifically in the first year, was very important to them. I'm glad that we did that.
Yeah. Up until the first year of COVID, we usually, kind of maybe missed a week or two per year. But we did have a good long running consistency for first year and a half or 2 years of COVID. Yeah. All right. I don't know if there's anything else to say at this point.
I don't think so.
Again, thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you for everyone who's been on the show, everyone who supported the show. We'll still be around, especially you, Jason.
Yeah, I'm not really going anywhere.
Yeah.
You just can't email me and ask to be a guest on the podcast anymore. And I guess we should probably take just a moment to apologize, because there's a couple of people left who we had kind of said, oh, well, maybe we'll have you on the podcast soon. And we haven't told them that we were
I got at least 3 or 4 emails over the past few weeks after we had decided we were going to do, end on this episode, because we had, booked 2 interviews and then said, we'll end after that one. And yeah, I apologize to those potential guests who have not responded to. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Again, maybe we'll be back someday, but taking a break for now.
Yeah. Thanks,
All
Rob.
right. Thank you, Jason. Bye, everybody.
Bye.